Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel, thank you. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Perfect World based on novel. So let's start. He returned to land and came back to the wasteland region. He silently thought to himself, reviewing all of the paths that he knew about again before heading to another place. 100 Race Battlefield. Legend has it that if one passes a test, they can enter the higher realms. The 100 Race Battlefield existed in every region. Back then, for his sake, his grandfather killed a Pai Xiao in the 100 Race Battlefield and ended up encountering a great disaster. That was a battlefield where different races fought for supremacy. Shahao knew about it a long time ago, but he had never paid it a visit. That day, a youth appeared inside the wasteland region's 100 Race Battlefield. He continuously challenged others and won repeatedly. Quite an uproar was stirred. During recent years, after the Great Calamity, the great archaic divine mountains all declined. The 100 Race Battlefield was no longer as great as before, lacking many unrivaled creatures. After using the 72 transformations to change his appearance, Shahao fought here. He didn't draw too much attention, because the entire world was talking about the Little Stone and Stone Country. The 100 Race Battlefield's battles weren't even close to being as shocking as Shahao sweeping through the world. After winning in this battlefield, he walked up onto the altar that transported him into an overgrown land. There weren't any live opponents here, only puppets and other things. He fought fiercely, ultimately winning again. He was then sent into another ancient place. This made him rather interested. There were secret lands here one after another, connected through formations. Could it be that he might truly be able to free himself from the lower realm? He slaughtered his way in. After being transported 6 times, he saw a few skeletons. Those corpses became more and more ancient, proving that it had been many years since someone entered this place. With Shahao's current strength, he naturally tore through this place with irresistible power, rushing forward in an unstoppable manner. Finally, Shahao slaughtered into the 10th trial, as well as the final trial. His mind was shaking violently, because he found a perfect transport formation. However, he saw an alarming message here. What? The 100 Race Battlefield's ultimate destination is a cage. The creatures that ascend from here will be captured and turned into mounts. Shahao became fearful. There were creatures that had fled back down after going up and left behind this alarming message. The so-called 100 Race Battlefield is actually this kind of place. Those undying inheritances of the higher realms truly bully others too far. Shahao said softly. If it truly was like this, then it was too lamentable. He silently thought to himself. Finally, he turned around and left. Even though this path was still here, the problem was too severe. He definitely didn't want to be captured and locked up in someone's sect. Moreover, he couldn't expose himself right now. Once those of the higher realms learned of his identity, it would be hard for him to survive. Shahao returned the way he came, sighing along the way. Was heaven cutting off his path? Right now, he had no other paths to try. He examined all types of bone books. He began to think to himself, reviewing all possible paths. In the end, he discovered that there was a boundless expanse between the two realms. It had truly been separated. Shahao looked into the sky. How was he supposed to enter the higher realms? Could it be that there was truly no way left? Suddenly, he thought of something and said, there is still one path. It can definitely connect to the higher realms. Wall of Gods and Devils, Death of the Archaic. Shahao softly spoke to himself. He thought of that place. Not only was there a mysterious wall there was also an ancient path. There were shocking words on that wall and a name that was extremely dangerous. However, if one passed through 108 trials, one could walk on that road and reach the place on the other extreme. However, ever since the ancient times, not many people had passed through this road. Shahao had spoken to the divine striking stone before and also searched through all types of bone books, and what he deduced was that this road should lead to the higher realms, perhaps even towards the so-called mysterious region. The shocking message, as well as the words death of the archaic, made one feel great fear. It was definitely not empty words, so he was sure that it was extremely dangerous. Shahal moved his body again. He headed for Fire Nation, and entered the ancient land that was full of magma and scorching heat. Then, he went deep underground before appearing in front of the ancient Holy Emperor Palace. There are 2 walls of gods and devils in this world. One is complete with 108 gates, while the other was a failed product with only the outer shape. The gates here, for example, the true dragon, immortal phoenix, and others weren't truly there. There were only a few shapes carved on the walls, so one couldn't go inside. There was no arena inside to fight against. This wasn't the road he needed. After arriving here, he wanted to find some clues, so he naturally needed to enter the battlefields. This was, without a doubt, going to be a series of intense battles. Fine, let's just treat this like a type of training to sharpen myself. Let's see just how powerful these divine birds and archaic vicious beasts are. A pair of stone gates was pushed open, and then Shahal walked in. It was quite dark inside, and the arena he stepped onto looked like it was covered in blood. This place was a dark red color. The sounds of beasts roaring continuously sounded. Lightning interweaved about, causing pa-li-pa-la sounds to sound, submerging this place with its power. This was a Swan Ni, an opponent Shahal specifically selected. He wanted to sharpen his own lightning precious technique, so he chose this heavenly ranked vicious beast that was proficient in this technique. Shahal sent out a fist that carried lightning radiance. He didn't use any tricks, and instead fought it head-on. He displayed the same precious technique to fight against this vicious beast. There is no limit to lightning. It is one of the world's most terrifying powers. Shahal fought intensely. He sighed inwardly in admiration. If he wasn't powerful enough himself, he would have been killed by this beast immediately. Regardless of whether it was heavenly tribulation or divine punishment, they were all lightning, descending to punish the wicked. This proved the awe of this power that was related to the forbidden. Shahal moved his body sideways. Multicolored light flowed through his body in an instant. His fist surged with lightning, clashing head-on against it. Endless lightning erupted. Blinding radiance filled this place. There are a few other divine birds and vicious beasts who excel in lightning. If I can learn from them, my lightning precious technique will definitely break through to the limit, perhaps becoming that of the forbidden Tao. Shahal fought while gaining insights. He wasn't in a rush to decide the outcome of this battle, instead using this chance to compare, comprehend, and perfect his own technique and Tao a step further. After studying it for a long time, he used all of his power and slammed out a palm. Endless lightning wrapped around a Swan Ni formed from lightning. In the surroundings, stars appeared one after another. It was incomparably ferocious. It rushed outwards and collided into the true Swan Ni ancient beast. This was a clash of the same precious technique. It was incredibly intense. Finally, everything vanished like smoke in thin air. That vicious beast turned into a Tao symbol and burnt into ashes. Shahal searched around this place, looking through every corner. He saw that there was a diagram carved at the very depths of this battlefield. He studied it for a bit before leaving. Then, he pushed open the next door. Just like that, Shahal continuously fought against other creatures, entering pairs of gates one after another. After several days of this, he was already riddled with scars and covered in blood. It was because these were all ancient giant beasts, and he was fighting without stopping to rest, continuously fighting great battles. Even the areas that weren't breakable were cracked apart. These places could not escape unharmed. This was how Shahal spent his time during the next half a month. When he was tired, he would close his eyes to rest for a bit, and when his injuries were severe, he would sit down and quietly recover. He already broke through 10 trials in succession, and as a result, discovered a few traces. There were bone texts recorded in a few arenas that spoke about locations where the true wall of gods and devils had appeared before. He woke up the divine striking stone and chatted with it to get its opinion on the matter. In the past, the places the wall of gods and devils appeared were all forbidden areas, and now, it should be a similar place. The scope of where he had to search was immediately narrowed. Finding this place would take a certain amount of time, but he could definitely find it. Keep fighting. I am going to complete all of these arenas. There should be some more clues. This time, he pushed open an enormous pair of ancient gates. He found a few corpses inside. This was a Dautai, a creature with a sheep body and human face. Its teeth were snow white, and brilliant scales covered its body. Between the scales, there was also some fur that was long and rough. It looked extremely ferocious. This was without a doubt a well-known beast among archaic heavenly ranked beasts, one of the creatures ranked at the forefront. It was known as a creature that could devour and eat all things. This vicious beast is definitely not easy to deal with, Shahao said to himself. Its reputation was extraordinary in the ancient years, shaking all 8 regions. A single roar could make the moon fall. Fortunately, battles within the arena were of the same cultivation realm. With a hoo sound, an enormous mouth filled the entire arena. Symbols shone brilliantly and mists surged. The Dautai swallowed Shahao into a bizarre little world. Shahao released a light shout. He turned into a vermilion bird that was powerful and domineering. His hands tore apart the fog and erupted with endless force to slaughter his way out. He treated this opponent seriously, carefully observing it. This battle would bring great benefits to him. It would allow him to understand more about this race, and also increase his fighting strength. The space around them trembled lightly. Large amounts of symbols appeared in the Tautia surroundings, turning into a sheet of scriptures that engraved itself into the void. Then, they flickered with radiance and suppressed down together. Yi? Shahao was astonished. This Dautai mastered its own precious technique to the extreme. It could combine symbols at ease and display the most powerful might. These scripture symbols arranged together, and ultimately formed a furnace. The earth quaked and mountains shook. The intense battle continued for a long time. Blood energy surged high into the sky. The Tautia's roar was powerful, enough to blast many opponents at its level to death. If it was other supreme experts that came, they might all have exploded on the spot. Even Shahao was shaken up. A great pressure pressed down on his mind, and his chi and blood were surging. Time to end it. Shahao used his most powerful strength, suddenly hacking open the Tautia's belly and rushing out. Scarlet multicolored light flickered about. A rain of blood followed him out. He leapt upwards and then pointed forward. Sword energy surged outwards, piercing the Dautai between his brows, immediately blasting it down. He sat down and rested for a bit. Then, he reached the deepest area in the arena. What he found made him release a cry of surprise. He found something important. What pity, I'm not unable to even complete the initial test, so it's impossible to go to the true wall of gods and devils. As a result, Shahao immediately felt as if everything became clear at once. As expected, it was the same as what the bone books vaguely recorded. This place was related to the true wall of gods and devils. He could now proceed there. Then, Shahao broke through several more trials and reached the end. There was nowhere left to go. Shahao was astonished. After carefully identifying and looking around, he knew where he was. This was a terrifying place in the wasteland region, Black Jungle region. Back then, the great demonic god Grandpa 15 had been chased after by a Pishio, and the place he fled to was this place. He avoided a disaster, but he was trapped for many years before he was allowed to leave. There are countless formations here. A single mistake, and I might be buried here forever. Shahao carefully observed this place as he walked in step by step. They continued to head inside, and eventually, they arrived in the deepest parts of this black jungle. It was incomparably quiet, as if it had been tens of thousands of years since anyone set foot here. There wasn't a single sound. Found it. Shahao was pleasantly surprised. He found an ancient wall. It was tall and wide, as if a mountain ridge stretched out in front of him. It was grey and simple-looking without any bright colors. There was only an ancient feeling to it. There were many lifelike carvings on it, as if they possessed souls. Fight. Shahal surged with fighting intent. This war wasn't unfamiliar to him, because it was similar to Fire Nation Ancestral Grounds' ruined war. He directly entered the first gate to start charging through. A bit stronger than the creatures in Fire Nation. He was shocked. Shahal was extremely serious. Even though he was powerful enough, he didn't get distracted. He went all out. Just like that, an astonishing confrontation was carried out. The battles were crazy and continuous. If news of this got out, it would definitely shock the world and create huge waves. He was just a single person, yet he challenged the most powerful divine birds and archaic vicious beasts in succession. This was simply a legend. Shahal fought while covered in blood. The wounds on his body became more and more numerous. He was extremely exhausted. He was now experiencing a test of life and death. These creatures' power were quite a bit stronger than those of Fire Nation's ancestral ground. It was unknown just how much time had passed. A flash of multicolored light flickered past. He slaughtered his way out. All types of symbols were flickering, forming an expanse of brilliance. Shahal was exhausted from fighting. His body was covered in blood and wounds. During these past few days, he had continuously fought, unexpectedly suddenly slaughtering his way out just like that. His mind trembled. Symbols flickered about and specks of light could be seen everywhere. This place was exceptionally brilliant. However, it wasn't some transport formation. Why was this wall broken? Shahal opened his mouth. The mountain ridge-like mountain was still there, but it was cut off. Why was it like this? He had tried so hard, yet this was the result he ended up seeing. The main thing was that this wall was too long. It was like a mountain ridge as it extended outwards. Shahal didn't walk through all of it, yet a segment had been broken. The broken area was full of patterns. There was a mysterious energy swirling about. Specks of brilliant light shone. My path was cut off again. Shahal clenched his fists, unwilling to accept this result. Why was it like this? Why did this mysterious ancient road break? Just what kind of power led to this? You have to understand that Shahal had tried to break this wall, but he couldn't even make it budge. He carefully looked it over. He felt like it was a sharp weapon that cut apart this wall, because the broken part was extremely smooth. Shahal tried to identify it. Finally, he saw its patterns. He drew the outline with his hands in the void and then, he was shocked. Could this be a bone piece from that place? It's related to Supreme Hall. He was greatly shaken. He had heard Willow Deity and Little Pagoda talk about Supreme Hall before, so he understood a bit about it. It was an extremely mysterious place. Meanwhile, the symbol of this inheritance was this imprint. Shahal's gaze was deep. He saw the other end of the broken wall and went over to take a look. Some of the stone gates here were broken, clearly having suffered from some type of powerful impact. I was wondering why I slaughtered my way out so quickly. I haven't completed everything yet after all. It was because he still hadn't fought a decisive battle against the True Dragon, Immortal Phoenix, Kuan Peng and other unmatched races like these before. They were all on that side. Those mountain gates were damaged. It seemed like his wish couldn't be satisfied. Shahal became silent. What kind of expert was that? You have to understand that based on what was recorded in the bone books, the wall of gods and devils was firm and undying. It couldn't be shaken at all. Why? Someone ascended the transport formation and unexpectedly made it crack apart. He and the divine striking stones did things separately. They began to search about again, hoping to discover more clues so they could understand exactly what happened. This grand valley, Shahal was astonished. There was a great valley behind the wall of gods and devils. The bottom was pitch dark, leading into the depths of the earth. Then, he noticed a few claw marks. They were incomparably large. A terrifying creature had crawled out from the depths of the earth and appeared here. It's an enormous tortoise. The divine striking stone saw those claw marks and said with confidence. The divine striking stone was stupefied as well. It looked into the great valley and then at the broken wall of gods and devils. Then, it looked at the bone piece in Shahao's hands that had been left here. It used the transport formation here. Episode 114 Part 1 will end here.